Here beside me is a typical example of a compliant front entrance door for social housing. It looks simple, but anyone in the industry knows there's more to compliance than meets the eye. So in this video, we're going to take you on a tour of the door, identifying the different standards and the certification that applies. Let's start by considering the door set in its entirety.
Building Regulations Approved Document B is the overarching statutory guidance that outlines the legal requirements pertaining to fire safety, including for the likes of doors and windows. Approved Documents B, M, Q and L all contain official guidance around the installation of doors. These documents in turn specify the standards as requirements of meeting the guidance. The first standard we'll cover today is BS-EN 1634. Any fire door has to undergo the BS-EN 1634-1 testing regime to confirm how long it will resist a fire attack. A sample door or door core is subjected to fire from both sides, and this determines whether it qualifies as a 30-minute or 60-minute fire door. Within Approved Document B, guidance is given where residential buildings require both fire and smoke doors, for example, apartment entrance door sets.
For a fire door to do its job, it has to be closed, and that makes the door closer a critical part of compliance. BS-EN 1154 is the standard that governs the performance of door closers. It sets out the rating system for closers, distinguishes between closers that are suitable for fire doors and those that aren't, sets out the test requirements they have to meet, and the parameters for door closing times.
Section 5.2 of EN 1154 states that delayed closing shall be capable of adjustment by means of a separate regulator, such that the closing time from 90 degrees to the delay zone is not less than 20 seconds. Another standard, BS-EN 1191, covers the resistance to repeated opening and closing of windows and doors. It states that the preferred closing time for automatic closing doors is 5 seconds.
So that gives us an ideal closing time to work to, 5 seconds. That's subject to the context of the environment and those that will be using the area. If this was an electromagnetic closer, one that can hold the door open in everyday use and close automatically with the fire alarm, then it would be BS-EN 1155 that applies. By now, you'll be getting an idea of the number of standards that apply, and there's more to come.
While BS-EN 1154 and BS-EN 1191 stipulate the closing speeds and forces for testing, BS-8300 specifies the acceptable opening forces for doors to meet accessibility requirements. In order to achieve the required closing forces whilst maintaining accessible door opening forces, it requires a balancing act. This diagram shows the maximum forces that BS-8300 states should be required to open a door. 30 newtons for the first 30 degrees, and up to 22.5 newtons up to 60 degrees.
These forces are measured using a gauge, like this one, on the leading edge of the door. This is fairly easy on the push side, but it requires a technique using a strap on the pull side. It's worth noting that anything that stops the door from closing easily usually requires increased power from the door closer to shut the door. In turn, this means it will be harder to push the door open.
BS-EN 1634 applies to all door hardware that makes up the full door set, but there are further standards which apply to individual components, including EN 1906 for handles, EN 1935 for hinges, and TS 002 for door viewers. For example, TS 008, the standard which applies to the performance of the letter plate, stipulates that the component must prevent unauthorised access while still allowing mail to pass through.
And on the theme of security, that brings up another British standard, PAS 24.
PAS 24 is a British standard that applies to the entire door set. This standard measures the security performance of windows and doors, and is a requirement of front entrance doors in social housing, subject to statutory guidance of Approved Document Q.
There are also third-party certification schemes that the government recommends, and many housing associations and councils will stipulate as a requirement for any doors going into their buildings. These certification schemes are not legal requirements as such, but they're a clear way to demonstrate compliance with the legal requirements.
Here is a summary of the standards and guidance relating to fire doors and their hardware for the social housing sector. Building regulations are a legal requirement. Approved Document B is official government-issued guidance to demonstrate how to comply with building regulations, setting out the overall requirements for fire safety. BS EN 1634-1 and -3 set the standards for fire and smoke performance of door sets and the components that make them up. BS EN 1154 sets the standard for door closer performance. BS 6375-2 also sets out the performance standards for door sets and is used to achieve police secured by design approval. BS EN 1191 covers the resistance to repeated opening and closing of windows and doors. BS 8300 sets the acceptable forces required to open doors with self-closing devices. PAS 24 sets the overall security standards for external and entrance doors. TS 008 sets the specific product standards for letter plates and is a required standard for any letter plate on a PAS 24 certified door. Third-party certification schemes demonstrate compliance with standards like those above.
Here at Rutland, we actively support the industry in achieving compliance with all standards, particularly relating to door hardware. We support door manufacturers through the testing and certification process and give guidance to all parties in the market on how to install and adjust doors in situ to ensure user-friendly closing and opening. If you have any queries relating to successful door operation or compliant hardware, do reach out to the team here at Rutland. I hope you found this video informative. Thank you for watching.